Hey, glad you're here. I want to talk tonight about something that I think gets missed in almost every conversation about growth and creativity and building a life that actually means something to you. I want to talk about small. Not small as insignificant. Not small as in you should want bigger. I mean small as in the thing you did today that nobody saw. The thing that doesn't have a metric attached to it. The thing that felt almost embarrassingly modest given everything you thought you'd be doing by now. I want to talk about that thing because I think it might be the most important thing that you're doing. There was a morning, not long ago, early, before anyone else was up. That specific kind of quiet that only exists in the hour before a house wakes up, when everything is still and the light is just starting to come in soft through the windows. And I was sitting there with something small I built. Not a finished thing. Not something I could point to and say, look, I made this. Just a habit that had stuck for the third day in a row. A sentence I'd finally written after circling it for 2 weeks. Something so modest that if I told someone about it, I probably would have prefaced it with, I know this isn't much, but... And I sat with it for a minute. And I felt two things at the same time that I wasn't expecting to feel together. Pride and grief. Pride because it was real. Because I'd actually done it. Because 3 days in a row is 3 more days than 0. And my body knew that even when my mind was busy, minimizing it. And grief because it was so much smaller than what I'd imagined for myself. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, there's still this version of my life that moves faster, produces more, looks the way I thought it would look by now. And sitting with this small true thing meant sitting with the distance between that imagined life and this actual one. And that distance, that gap, it's its own kind of weight. I think of a lot of us are carrying that gap around without naming it. Now here's what I've been sitting with since that morning. We talk a lot about ownership, about taking ownership of your story, your life, your narrative. And I think that language is important, I do. But I think we skip over something crucial when we talk about it. We skip over the part where ownership doesn't feel like empowerment at first. It feels like grief. Because owning your life means owning all of it. The slow parts, the small parts, the parts that don't look the way you thought they would. The habits that took 4 attempts to stick. The creative work that's moving at a pace that embarrasses you when you compare it to people who seem to be doing so much more with so much less struggle. Owning your life means looking at the actual shape of it, not the imagined shape, not the aspirational shape, the real shape. The one that's here right now. The one with the unfinished edges and the slower timeline and the small true things that are easy to dismiss because they don't photograph well. And here's what I want to say about that shape. It's yours. It is specifically, entirely, unrepeatable yours. And the slow build that you're in the middle of right now, the one that feels too modest, too quiet, too far from where you thought you'd be, that slow build has a dignity to it that fast progress will never have. Because fast progress is easy to perform. Slow progress is impossible to fake. I'm going to tell you something about small struggles that I think we don't say enough. They are load-bearing. I don't mean that metaphorically, or I do, but I also mean it practically. The small struggle of showing up to something for the 3rd day in a row when nobody is watching and nothing is finished and the results aren't visible yet, that is structural work. That is the work that holds everything else up. The work that makes the bigger things possible later. We talk about foundations in construction like they're the boring part you have to get through before the real building starts. But any architect will tell you that the foundation isn't the boring part. foundation is the whole thing. Everything above ground is only possible because of what's happening below it. Your small struggles are below ground. That doesn't mean they don't count. That means they're holding everything up. I think about the word ownership a lot, particularly this idea, and this is something I keep coming back to, of learning the shape of your life again. Again. That word matters. Because most of us had a version of our life that we understood, that felt legible to us, that made sense in the way we moved through our days. And then something happened. A loss, a transition, a season that asked more of us than we had. And the shape changed. And we've been trying to find it again ever since. And what I want to say, what I think the slow build is actually teaching us, is that you don't find the shape of your life again by moving faster. You find it by paying very close attention to the small things that feel true. The habits that stick, not because you force them, but because they fit. The creative work that keeps calling you back, not because it's performing well, but because it's yours. The moments, quiet, ordinary, easy to dismiss, where something in you says, yes, this is the right direction. Those moments are the shape. They're not pointing toward the shape. They are the shape. So here's what I want to leave you with tonight. If you're in a slow build right now, and I suspect a lot of you are, because slow builds are where most of real life actually happens, I want you to hear this clearly. The smallness is not the problem. The smallness is the work. And the dignity of that work. The quiet, unglamorous, nobody is watching dignity of showing up to something small and true for one more day. That is not a consolation prize for people who couldn't manage something bigger. That is the thing itself. That is ownership. Not the ownership of a finished life, perfectly shaped and ready to be presented. The ownership of this life, the actual one, the one that's here right now, moving at the pace it moves, shaped the way it's shaped, built slowly and honestly from the inside out. You're building something real, even if it doesn't look like it yet. Even if the only evidence is a habit that held for 3 days, or a sentence that finally came, or just the fact that you're still here, still showing up, still willing to sit on this porch for a few minutes and listen to someone tell you that the small thing counts. It counts. I see it, even if nobody else does yet. Take care of yourself.